The mid-1980s were a halcyon period for the World Rally Championship, unless you lived east of the Iron Curtain. When Stalin decided to close the door on the rest of the world in 1945, he imposed a regime of power and paranoia. Becoming a professional rally driver was as likely as becoming an astronaut, yet some managed it. But who? Who did manage it? The Legends of the Winding Road is a film dedicated to those drivers. Here at Dirtfish, we've been fortunate to talk to the people behind that movie, the people who have retold this incredible tale.
If you wanted to buy a car, you need to have a paper that you allowed to buy a car. And then you could wait like 10 years maybe this approval that you can go and buy a car. It's somehow the car is maybe thing that gives some kind of freedom, but it's also, if you have like that kind of like huge country like Soviet Union was, everybody couldn't have it, and then also maybe it's easier to control the people. Maybe it gives like the same level to everybody, but doesn't actually exist, because there is like always some better and not so good guys.
Lada grew out of the state-owned Avtovaj car plant on the banks of the Volga River. In a rare partnership which reached from behind the Iron Curtain, Russia's Department of Foreign Trade shook hands with Fiat's Gianni Agnelli on a deal to build the people's car from 1970. The Vaz 2101 was born.
I mean, this type of Lada was really the dream of every boy, more or less, who was interested in the cars at the time. Most of us had a poster on the wall picturing this one or a few other ones that were like top cars at the time, and a lot of childhood memories just looking at the poster and visiting some of the rallies and looking up to the guys who were big stars at the time.
By deceiving the state, sidestepping the KGB, these men became motorsport heroes from another world. This is their story.
At times they were always selected who could go outside of Russia to participate in a rally. So it was sometimes it was one driver, then it was the other one. Yeah, like most of the top teams were in Estonia. There was a few in Lithuania and maybe 1-2 in Russia as such.
The stories were so different in that time because everybody has their own story, how to get to Soviet rally team. And they had, of course, the result was one thing, but the challenges were totally different. KGB was involved, like we said, Soviet army was involved in supply chain, even in management. Who can go to the Western countries, compete, and who know? And that was like factory teams nowadays. Then it was factory team run by Soviet army.
It's remarkable though, isn't it? You know, in that day-to-day life, somebody in the film referred to the likes of Ilmar as cosmonauts, because they were, you know, they had this opportunity, because when you were living day-to-day life in that time, the thought of going to Finland, to Sweden or to Spain,
that was impossible. There was no chance for normal people there. So it was, they were special people at the time. Yeah, they had benefits the others didn't. So.
That was system was so that the ruble was worthless. You couldn't use it in free world. But when you had chance to go free world to compete, you had some kind of salary for that, very small, maybe $10–20 per day. But when you came back and changed it, not in official rate, but in other market rate, then that could be salary of the year. only this 1 week outside. And when you bought radio from Stockholm or even from Helsinki store and came here, that was worth like maybe 20, 50 times than the official rate.
At the time, the other side of the iron wall, there was so much better cars than these. You know, this car is from quite late specification, '89. But at the time, if you know what kind of car rally cars were then, or if you go a few years back, it was still the same car in Soviet Union, but you had a Group B. Like it was like you can't. Okay, this is Group B as well, but as a car, they are not comparable. You know.
And you didn't, I mean, you just didn't ask too many questions, did you, about where they'd come from or how the stuff had come? You know, if people had found out, there would have been serious trouble.
Of course, that was black market that time, and of course Soviet Army didn't know that they are suppliers of the rally teams by material-wise. But the problem was that car hadn't power in engine. You needed to get it lighter and lighter, and lighter materials like titanium, aluminium, they weren't available. Even normal material wasn't available at the stores. You go to the store and buy suspension, for example. That wasn't possible.
This isn't a film about Ladas. This is a film about a way of life totally alien to so much and so many outside of the Soviet Union. It's a story about drivers who dared to dream about the roads on the other side of the Iron Curtain. Hardy Meets, Ilmar Rezar, they had the same passion, the same commitment, and who knows, maybe even the same talent as Hannu Mikkola and Mikki Biasion. But their story was destined to be kept secret. Until now.
For the next generation, the movie always is something you can carry on, and I was very glad that we got the interviews from the drivers originally, that they went back in their time, and it was like a time capsule a little bit for them as well. The stories then of drivers, but we were lucky they were ready to share the stories and also their personal archive of pictures, and every picture had a story behind it, and to listen to them, that was amazing. We had few hundred hours interviews.
At first place, they didn't want to talk so much about this period because they have locked this period or this thing for themselves, the drivers, that it's over, it's done, it's forgotten. But when they started to open, it brings so much memories back. And then some interviews they did like several times, and then I don't talk about that. And then after like few days they called to Kaidi that I thought maybe it's time to talk about this or that. So I guess it's like a little bit hard for them as well to remember this period. So the post-production started at the end of the last year, and actually it's quite a short period for that kind of film. And the main problem was that we didn't have any archive footages from this time, because it wasn't allowed to film or make pictures outside from the Soviet Union, so we didn't have like any materials from the drivers.
They are not really good cars, but that was only my only experience with that car on that film I drove. But by the end of it, I think it was quite fun actually, because like with every car, if you want to compete, it's not easy. You have to take the maximum out of it, and you understand the car that okay, it's not perfect, but you just will drive it the way it needs to be driven.
Nowadays, it's like hard to understand, and people forgot this period as well very quickly. Even now I know the stories, I know this period, and all these car posters were on my walls, but it's nowadays it's like hard to understand.
I always thought that I was quite a lucky person, because I lived in the Soviet Union, and things really didn't stop me doing sort of child stuff. It was simple, you didn't have many things, your friends didn't have anything as well, so it was simple from that point of view. And when I grew up, we had a freedom, and I was able to do like free work, could do things. So I was lucky. I could see the before and after, and it didn't really affect me as a person.
Now, when you look back, when you went to the premiere, how did you feel when you sat there and watched your work?
Most pleasure gave me when all guys gathered together. To see them all again in one room was already tremendous success, and to see them in one picture, that was something I can't describe.